I rented the photography darkroom till close, what the red light couldn't forgive. I didn't rent the darkroom because I'm nostalgic. I rented it because red light keeps you honest in a way daylight forgives too quickly. The Arts Center leases out the photo lab after midnight if you've ever rescued their temperamental enlarger with a paperclip and optimism. I had. So when I called at 11:20 p.m., the night manager, Lark, sighed, checked a clipboard with the resigned affection of a person who still believes in processes, and said, 1 hour. Chemicals are mixed. Don't touch the timers. And for the love of everything, no trials after 2. She slid a key through the security slot like a benediction. She didn't have the budget to print. At 11:38, my phone delivered the sentence my marriage and I had perfected into polite punctuation. Loadout ran late. Quick toast with the team might crash at the office. Don't wait up. Tessa isn't a liar. She organizes disasters into shapes donors can post about. She runs volunteers like a symphony of borrowed backs. We've spent a year being excellent caretakers and poor thieves, generous with mercy, stingy with appetite. The person who made that accounting dangerous came with gaffer in his tote and non-theatrical shoulders. His name is Nico. He stands exactly one respectful step from married women, the distance that makes rooms behave without needing an alibi. I admire him at 10 in the morning. At 2, my neck files a dissent. The darkroom is a cave built out of metal trays, wet air, and the kind of silence machines make when they've decided not to argue with you. I switched the safe light on and watched the room surrender its colors. The trays sat like patient mouths. Developer, stop, fixer. The air smelled like pennies and vows. I set 2 paper cups of terrible vending machine coffee on the dry table and waited beside the enlarger like a man who had decided to hire evidence instead of a lawyer. They arrived at 12:06, the hallway's fluorescents flickering their mild contempt as the door opened. Tessa first, hair pinned in the shape competence requires, mouth still carrying a joke she hadn't had time to laugh at properly. Nico behind her, sleeves pushed, tote at his hip, eyes doing the perimeter math that has kept him employed in a dozen rooms where other people's mistakes needed to be lifted quietly. He saw me first. Men who carry after midnight learn the silhouette of a husband through even the friendliest door. He nodded, a small, workable piece, and stopped one respectful step inside, palms visible, a man trying to be furniture without lying about it. Dark room, Tessa said, soft exasperation hiding under a smile. Of course you would. It's the only room where hanging something up wet is considered progress, I said. Say it. In an elevator, she said, because the universe hates paying writers for new scripts. 2 weeks ago, between floors and nouns, I kissed him. It was quick, mint. Rehearsal. He stepped back. He said my name like a lock. I hated him for being the adult I pretended not to need. Do you want me to hit him? I asked, already hearing how boredom wears brass knuckles. I want you to choose me, she said. Not rescue, appetite. Nico looked at the floor tiles where a lifetime of shoes had learned humility. Need me? He asked her, not me. I need you exactly there, she said, pointing to the taped line that keeps students from backing into the drying rack. If I want less distance, I'll use proper nouns. He obeyed. Good men do. That's how they keep rooms safe and husbands impatient. I handed Tessa a sheet of paper, glossy side up, like a ceremony that had earned its seriousness without funerals. Let's print something we don't have to apologize for, I said. She took it with both hands, the way she takes clipboards when gravity needs coaxing. I slid a negative carrier under the enlarger head. A photo I'd made of our kitchen on a morning we didn't ruin, her wrist on the counter in sunlight, a small knife beside a lemon pretending to be the moon. The image glowed pale on the easel, an invitation written in a dialect I could still read. I set the timer and the metronome in my chest found its rhythm. "Invite me when you're interesting," I said. "Not only when you're frightened you'll be easier to love in other lighting." "I am inviting you," she said, stepping until our shoulders breathed the same air. "Now." The timer buzzed with the modest authority of 1,000 past tests. I slid the paper into the developer tray and rocked it gently. The image arrived the way confessions should, slowly, without flinching. Her wrist, the lemon, the stubborn light. Tessa leaned over my shoulder, and the red bulb traded our faces for warmer versions of their arguments. I put my hand at the back of her neck and pressed my thumb into the notch I've kept since the apartment where the radiator sang. She closed her eyes like a vote counted publicly. I kissed her, not apology, jurisdiction. She answered like a woman who'd been a plan for 12 hours and needed to be a person for 4 minutes. My other hand slid down along her ribs to her waist where the elastic made its case. I stopped because I prefer the man I wake up as to the man a deposition invents. She took my lower lip between her teeth, brief and deliberate, then laughed into my cheek, the laugh that survives budgets, gossip, February. "Do you still want to hit him?" she asked without breaking distance. "I want to thank him for stepping back," I said, "and I want to owe him nothing else." "That's a budget," she said. "We can live on it." I lifted the paper with tongs and lowered it into the stop bath. The chemistry snapped the light into place with that small, righteous smell that says boundaries aren't only about refusal, they're also how pictures stay. "Tell me the worst thing you almost did," she said. "I sat in a motel parking lot with a key I never used," I said. "Watched numbers on a door try to pronounce my name. Laughed myself back into the car when the night failed the audition. I went to a lobby," she said. "Drank water until the room remembered it was furniture, not plot. I nearly texted you proof because proof looks like love if you don't read it out loud. Then I threw my phone in my bag and chose a door with a red bulb." Behind us, Nico cleared his throat in the polite key. "Loadin' at 9, he said to the floor, not to me. "The van wants 4 backs and 0 speeches." He stayed on his tape mark like a man trying to stay employed by decency. I slid the print into the fixer and we watched permanence arrive, not because we deserved it, but because we'd done the order right. The timer buzzed again, a tiny courthouse with better manners than most. I hung the picture on the line. Drops beaded and fell like apologies that had found honest work. "Do something foolish," Tessa said, "but survivable." I pulled an empty contact sheet and with a grease pencil wrote along the margin the sentence I hadn't been brave enough to say with my mouth all month. "Choose before the elevator does." She took the pencil, wrote on her own palm in reverse for the mirror later. "Appetite, not theater." She held it up to the red light and laughed at the way her hand had learned to read itself backward. I kissed the letters dry and remembered being a body before I was a strategy. We kept our clothes and our lives. We made heat that could walk back through lobbies and not owe anyone new paperwork. The safe light hummed like a witness who didn't need to be sworn in. Outside the door a janitor's cart passed, the wheels telling the quiet truth of work. We printed 2 more frames. Her silhouette framed by the kitchen doorway the night the power went out, my face half in shadow, half in the glow from the open fridge, an accidental confession about how I prefer to be seen. We didn't try for masterpieces. We tried for accuracy. "Do you want to keep working with me?" I asked, finally paying the sentence the dignity of air. "Yes," she said, with the exact mouth she uses to convince a room of strangers to lift something heavy together. "But stop auditioning for the role of the reasonable husband. I'm not hearing for that part." "Understood," I said. I'll apply for appetite. She grinned and kissed my jaw. You're shortlisted. The timer ran out our hour the way a street runs out block numbers. I rinsed the trays, the cheapest absolution chemistry cells, and wiped the counter with a rag that had seen better vows. We turned the safe light off, and for a second the room was honest about how dark can be. Then the hallway fluorescents barged in with their paperwork. In the doorway, Nico shifted his tote, a man ready to be scenery elsewhere. If I'm in the way, he said, still a respectful step from anything worth breaking, say so, and I'll be a hallway. You're a hallway, I said. At 9, you're a van. He nodded once, as if contracts could be signed with a shoulder. We stepped into the night that smells like delivery trucks and weather that hasn't decided. The Arts Center's steps do not love ankles. Tessa misjudged the bottom one and my hand caught her waist with a reflex older than marriage. She steadied, breathed out, kept my wrist for one extra beat, daylight legal, and then let go. At home, we taped the wet prints to the bathroom tile with painter's tape. The room filled with steam and the lemon from a bottle that lies about being essential. We brushed teeth at the same sink, foam ridiculous, our eyes quite serious. She reached across me for a towel, and her shoulder pressed into my chest in a way that convinced the mirror to mind its own business. We slept because sleep is not the enemy of desire. It's where desire does its stretching. At 9, the community center smelled like lemons spelling please. Nico was already lifting tables with the modest inevitability that teaches gravity humility. I carried the other end and let the sun assign me jurisdiction. Tessa moved through the room with a clipboard, and the mouth volunteers obey without punishment. When she passed me, she touched my wrist again, public, precise, and the morning decided not to argue. During break, I set a coffee by Nico's elbow. Thank you for being the adult in the elevator, I said. Thank you for renting a room that refuses to lie, he said, eyes on the coil of cable in his hands. He did not add anything heroic. Decency prefers declarative sentences and early mornings. We loaded the van without speeches. Tape squealed, the door clanged, the checklist sighed with relief. Gravity agreed to be negotiated for one more day. We didn't tell anyone about the darkroom. We didn't need to. We clipped the kitchen wrist print to the side of our fridge under the magnet shaped like the ridiculous boat we bought one summer we didn't ruin. Sometimes when the house auditions for courtroom, we switch off the big light in the bathroom and let the mirror learn us under the cheap red glow of a nightlight. Sometimes she texts come and means stand next to me while I bend a room into competence and beauty. Sometimes I text come and mean watch me be a body before I become a plan. Sometimes we invite a friend who thinks proof is the same thing as love and show them a tray of blank paper fogging into a face. How patience, sequence, and a steady hand turn almost into something the morning recognizes. We didn't stop admiring other people's competence. We did stop confusing it with permission. Heat is a temperature, not a verdict. Red light is a witness that refuses to flatter you into a prettier story. We eat before we try to win. We sleep when the clock loses its manners. We put our hands on each other in daylight like the sun still issues licenses. And when the gossip part of the city asks whether we have anything to add, we hold up a print and let the shadows answer. We chose before the elevator did. We kissed under a bulb that doesn't forgive. And we left the room cleaner than we found it, with our names still legible in the margin and no trials after 2.